Welcome to the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, my home state, the land of pleasant living. John Webster. John, how are you this post-Labor Day weekend?
Doing great, Gary. Another great week in sports, man. I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Before we get too far going in it, let's as always say hey to our traffic cop who can't make it with us today. John Pitt, we hope you're doing well. Hope to see you back real soon, man. We miss you.
Yes, indeed.
Gary,
Yes, indeed.
man, I tell you what, I just said something to you before we went on the air, and I'm going to say it to you as well because you and others seem to get a kick out of my country sayings like you burned a hole in my spurs. Well, I got another one for you today, Gary. We got some toast to put on that jelly. So this gonna be a good show, man, like we always do. But
All
we're
right.
gonna talk some NCAA football. We're gonna talk some NFL football, and if time permits, we want to give you a time to talk about the U.S. Open in that segment right there, man. So let's get ready to kick it on, man. You ready? Let's go for it.
All right. Yep. Let's talk some football. Okay, first of all, what a heck of a weekend for top 10 teams, which is to say, what a heck of a weekend for some top 10 teams to look bad, such as top-ranked Texas, which got beat by my Ohio State Buckeyes. And
Not
really
my, not my, the.
the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah, the team that I root for. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Um, which I thought was surprising. Alabama just just looked out of sorts, and Notre Dame, which I really thought that they could go in there and win that game solely because Carson Beck was starting for was starting his first game for the Hurricanes, but you know. I think you said before we went on the air that they made him look like a string of great Miami quarterbacks, which is saying something. But first, let's all agree that too much was made of Arch Manning. Um, he just looked out of sorts. I think the surprising thing was that the Ohio State defense really rose to the occasion and made him look ordinary in a sense and looked overrated. And I hate to use that word, but in fact, what I'll say is overhyped because that's all we heard in the preseason. Potential Heisman Trophy candidate. Of course, there's still time for him to resurrect and win the SEC. But right now, I'm not even sure if Texas is a contender in the SEC. I mean, Alabama, same thing. In Alabama, thought I saw a stat that they were something like 5-7 in their last 12 FBS games. That's not going to get it done down in Tuscaloosa, Tuscaloosa rather. I mean, you don't want you don't want Bama to become Tuscaloosa. Yeah, I mean, it's just not going to play down there. And Kalen DeBoer really has to get that team together. It's the way that they look that I thought was most distressing. As for Texas, again, I think they were just overwhelmed. I don't know if it was playing in the horseshoe, which can be an intimidating place. I don't know if they still, you know how preseason is, that you play against yourselves for 4 weeks in August, and then you have to go up and face an opponent. You don't really have scrimmages against anybody else like you do in basketball or even baseball, college baseball for that matter. So they go into Columbus, and I really expected more, but they just didn't deliver. They just looked flat. And again, Ohio State shouldn't brag about too much other than winning the game because they only scored 14 points. Um, but that defense really did bail them out. Even if the defense is ahead of the offense after training camp and going into the regular season, that was an effort that I really didn't expect, given some of the talent that they lost to the NFL and some, of course, who've transferred.
Gary, you said a lot, man. You said a
Almost too
lot.
much.
No, man, you always bring it right, man. That's why I love listening to your commentary, Gary. Um, this is the first thing that I'll say. Florida State. I
Yeah.
think you have a combination of things there. I
Hmm.
think one, people may be thinking too much out of Alabama, and
Yeah.
two, Florida State is better than a lot of people think they were going to be.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I'm excited about that. The ACC. It's been Clemson's domain for a long time. Before it was Clemson's domain, it was Florida State's domain. Now it's looking like you got a good Clemson team, even though they lost to LSU. They're a very good team, I think. You got a Georgia Tech team who looks really tough, went into Boulder, beat Colorado. And now you have Florida State who beat Alabama. You got at least three teams
Hmm.
in that ACC. Three, and two of these you weren't even talking about in the regular season. You were talking about SMU, Clemson, and I think maybe Louisville. I think those are the three they were talking about. Now you got
Yeah.
two more to add to the mix. I think that's beautiful, man. I really think that's great. The other thing that I'll say is Miami.
Mm.
I'm just shaking my head, Gary. I'm just shaking my head because I have some friends of mine, and everybody knows how much of a big fan I am of Notre Dame for all sports. Let's
Mm.
be clear. Notre Dame is, will, and always will be the epitome of academic and athletic excellence. Let's get that out the way first. Uh, I,
Taking nothing
I know,
away from Duke or Stanford or Cal or anything else, all those other
or,
schools.
or Harvard or Yale,
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I think that game showed a lot. I think Miami is a good team this year. They deserve to win. But as I told you earlier, I'm not a big fan of freshman quarterbacks.
Hmm.
I think they need time, especially when you're going into Coral Gables. And did you see the sidelines that Miami had? All the people that were coming back for this game. Jimmy Johnson came back. Michael Irvin's there. Andre Johnson, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis. The list goes on and on and on. And a crazy crowd there. Not crazy bad, crazy in a good way. They were like the 12th man.
Hmm.
And Carson Beck, as I said to you earlier before we went on the air, I will never say a kid is terrible. I would say Carson Beck was coming out of Georgia is a decent quarterback. But doggone if Notre Dame didn't make him look like Vinny Testaverde, Steve Walsh, Jim Kelly, Bernie Kosar, all quarterbacks at Miami who were great at Miami. I'm not talking about their pro careers, I'm talking about at Miami. And three of those quarterbacks, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I just named, won national championships.
Hmm.
So, you're looking at that. I think Miami also was able to run the ball on Notre Dame consistently. They were able to make good passes and good decisions on passing. I think Notre Dame on their defensive side is not so much them missing players as they are missing their coach. Al Golden was the defensive coordinator last year. He has moved on to be the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the guy they have now, Todd Hatch, I think I'm saying his name right. I always mess names up. I think he's good. I think it will be even better as the season goes on. But at Notre Dame, you don't have a lot of time. You're thinking about winning a national championship or being in the search of a national championship or being in the talk for a national championship to have a lot of growing pains and learning on the run. You got to be ready to go now. On offensive side, CJ Carr, gutsy quarterback, gutsy. I think he is going to be a very, very, very good quarterback who we will talk about for many years at Notre Dame. But he is a freshman. He has to grow. And again, when you're in the search of a national championship like they are, how much room do you have to grow? How much time do you have to let that growth happen? Their next game is against Texas A&M. That's a very important game because they're already 0-1. They don't need to be 0-2. I think, honestly, this Notre Dame team is a top 15 team. I think it's a very good team. And I also think Marcus Freeman, as always, is a very good coach. I don't think right now they are a top 10 team. That's my opinion.
No, no.
Now we mentioned also, you mentioned the Ohio State and Texas. Gary, you hit the nail on the head. Arch Manning is pedestrian at best right now. And I think that's also learning pains and growing pains. I think Grandpa Archie said it best. Yeah, he's gonna come back to school next year. He's gonna need another year. Yes. Nothing
Mm.
is wrong with that. I think a lot of people now, you want to chase the dollars, leave school immediately and get paid. I know the money is important. I know you're worried about injury. I get it. I'm not against anybody getting paid, but I want you to go get paid and be productive. I don't think he's ready. I think he needs to stay at Texas, keep growing. I will go a little bit different from what you said. I think Texas still can be in the running for an SEC championship. I really do. I think now they got a tough schedule, Gary. They got a tough schedule, but I think they
Yeah.
can be in the running for it. Now you got some good teams there this year. South Carolina looks like they want to be a real situation this year. You got Florida and playing down that swamp. That's rough. And I got to give credit where credit's due. You got to look at LSU and what Brian Kelly's doing over there. They played a tremendous game against Clemson, went into the other Death Valley and beat the other Tigers. So, it's tough. And the one we didn't mention, Gary, and I'll just mention it and you can just broach over it if you want. Rough night for Coach Belichick and the UNC Tar Heels.
Oh man. I'm gonna start with that one first. John, that honestly, that might have been the most shocking game of the weekend. Only because I expected a Bill Belichick team to come out there and be more prepared. What they instead showed, one, Sonny Dykes takes no prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Takes no prisoners. I mean, TSU just overwhelmed UNC. That
Mm-hmm.
much was obvious. I'm not going to say that they were unprepared. I do think that the spotlight of the moment for UNC, which really under Mac Brown, they were one of those teams. They'd be ranked, they'd look like contenders, and then they hit a big time game or something, and then just would falter. Stage fright, I think is the term that I'm looking for them. And I think that was the case last night, especially with everything in transition. And I know that it was a draw. Belichick was a draw to get them on a Monday night game. And I understand that, and I do think it was somewhat justified because you're talking about a Hall of Fame coach or future Hall of Fame coach. I can't remember what that criteria is now, but that team they just looked like a team that was still starting over under a brand new coach, whether he won 6 Super Bowls or not. That was probably the most surprising thing was just how overwhelmed they were, not only in the moment, but by those Horned Frogs. Now, we all know TCU is a perennial playoff contender. I'll say that, a perennial playoff contender. They're only 2 years removed from being in I think it was the last 14 playoff. Um, I do expect them to contend this year in the Big 12, and I hope I'm making sure that I've got them in the right conference with all the realignment.
Yeah, they'd
But
be still in the Big 12.
yeah, because I don't want to put them in like the little two in the pack, but
You don't want to put them. You don't want to put them in the pack too, Gary.
no, no. But I think that was the most surprising outcome was just one, how good TCU looked for an opening game, and B, how overwhelmed UNC was in a game of that stature with the coach. That tells me that they're going to have a lot of adjusting to do over the next few weeks because you know Florida State coming off a 2-10 season and really looking bad in a lot of those games. I mean, it was like it was like they didn't even contend for Mike Norvell to bring a team out there and just completely swamp Alabama. And you could see even in the Alabama fans' faces before halftime, it's just like this team just really just doesn't, they look beaten. If they could leave for the exits at halftime, they probably would have, not just because of a downpour, but because, well, I'll say it was because of a downpour because the Seminoles were raining all over them. I mean, it was raining garnet and gold. That's the only way you can really describe it. I do think that that sends a message for the ACC that it's not Clemson's domain. I think really you're looking at right now. You're looking at the two contenders in the state of Florida, Florida State and Miami. Mario Cristobal, I'm going to give him credit for how he develops quarterbacks and how he adapts quarterbacks. I mean, we know what happened last year with Cam Ward, but now with Carson Beck, he's got another budding star to develop. Now, you were right that they made him look like past greats like Vinny and Steve Young and Jim Kelly and all of them. But we all know that doesn't last, especially with a longer season. And now with the playoffs, you're kind of thrown in. So much can change, but I would say at this point, that's the team that you're looking at. Florida State's right behind them. Clemson. Kate Klubnik, I was really kind of shocked by that playing at home to just to be beaten at home. But I think that says something, as you said, about Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, really showed a lot of poise in the pocket, went over 4,000 yards. So LSU, that's a team I think right now they look ready to contend in the SEC. I think the SEC is wide open. You're right. Texas has a lot of time to regroup and really be the favorites that they're expected to be in the SEC. But you really have to work with Arch Manning on a lot of things like reading defenses, like adjusting the blitzes, all kinds of little things that he's just not doing. And I'll say it like this: for all the hype he's gotten, he only has maybe 6 or 7 starts under his belt. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, he doesn't even have a season's worth of starts under his belt, and you really, if you're Texas and you're hoping to contend, you should have gotten him those kind of snaps last year. You should have gotten him that kind of experience, the last couple of years. He just looked ordinary. Yeah, I think when you use the term pedestrian for Carson Beck, Arch Manning just looked outmatched. I mean, he to me, he looked like Patrick Mahomes walking up to the line in the Super Bowl in the third quarter and just wondering, what do I do here? I see this, I see a 3-man front, I see a 4-man front, but what do I do here? And then, of course, that disguised, well, the Eagles didn't blitz in that game, but Ohio State did, and he just didn't
Mhm.
adjust.
You're right. You're right, man. It's going to be an interesting season, Gary. I think we've gotten off to a great start with ground zero on 0 week and week one.
Well,
So
and
we got
we,
a lot of
yeah,
stuff. We got a lot of stuff to look forward to.
we
Now, what do we have to look forward to this week with the NFL, Gary? Week
uh,
one. Your
hmm.
Green Bay Packers. It happened after we went off the air last week. Your Green Bay Packers have a new player now. Comes from Dallas, named Micah Parsons. I want you to talk about that after you finish talking about it. I have a theory I want to share on Mr. Jerry Jones.
Okay. All right. First things first. Micah Parsons is Christmas in August. That's the only thing I can call it for the Packers. They've got a proven defensive anchor, not only can call plays, but can stop the run, can pass rush. I mean, all the things that made him a star, he's bringing to Green Bay. He's also bringing in an edge because of the contentious contract negotiations and the back and forth with Jerry Jones down in Dallas that really, and I said this, when I think I walked out of a meeting and I saw this alert and I was like, wait, what? I really thought it was a joke. I thought it was the Onion or something putting that out there, but it was like, wow, they just gave a great player to a Super Bowl contender. And my first thought was at at what cost? Of course, it cost them one of their players and two number one picks. And I'm going to put it in perspective that that's a lot to give up for your future, which I don't like. Our team in Washington and under George Allen used to trade away a lot of the future because the future was now for him. And I'll say for the most part, they were able to overcome it, with a lot of the veterans that he had there, and of course, Joe Gibbs was not that kind of guy, or should I say, Bobby Beathard was not that kind of guy. You just don't trade away two number ones. Now, the good news for them is that those two number ones, looking at where Green Bay is and where Dallas is, Green Bay's picks, they'll probably be low first round because again, no, they figure to be in the playoffs. And I want to say they'll probably get the wild card out of the Central, because I still like Detroit in the Central Division, the Black and Blue Division, but there's still two number one draft picks. And I'm not going to say they mortgaged their future, but they put it a little bit in jeopardy because you can get good players. You're not going to get, game-changing players, franchise players in that late in the first round. The one example I like to look at is that, Baltimore got Lamar Jackson, a Heisman Trophy winner, at the end of the first round. So yes, the talent is there, but I just hope that they play well enough so it's like really near the end of the first round, as opposed to something where, maybe in the top 15 picks where you can get a guy or get guys for 2 years in a row that can change your outcome. Um, the word I think, I don't know, it wasn't fleeced, but um, you could look at it that Dallas probably got the better end of the deal in the long term. The first thing I thought was when they traded Herschel Walker, yeah, to the Minnesota Vikings, the Cowboys did. And look at all those picks that turned them into the team of the 90s, with Troy Aikman and Emmett Smith. I forgot who else, they drafted. I think what Nate Newton might have been part of those drafts too. And you're talking about, three Hall of Famers right there. I don't know if it's on that scale, but it could be if Dallas uses them right. And John, at that point, I'm turning it over to you for your thoughts about one Jerry Jones.
Hey, Gary, I'm going to say this. Like I said before, you always bring it strong. I appreciate you, man. This is
All
what
right.
I think. This is what I think. First, let me preface it by saying I would not have made the trade Jerry Jones made. Let me first preface it by saying that I would not have done this deal. But at the same time, I'm not sitting here and going to flat out say it's a bad trade. Well, you never know what a trade is bad or good until it actually goes through, Gary. That's my point.
Yeah.
You have to let both sides play it out and see what happens. Jerry Jones got a run stopper from Green Bay. Forget the guy's name. You probably remember his name, Gary. I can't remember his name.
Once they leave Green Bay, I kind of forget the names.
Well, that's
Yeah,
that's
and
that's a,
especially first thing in the morning.
yeah. That look, hey Gary, don't hit me through the phone. That's a cheesehead for you.
I say, I got your cheese head. Anyway,
Look, but with that being said, I can't remember the guy's name, but Jerry Jones said he wanted a run stopper. This guy is a
mhm,
tackle. He's supposed to help him on the run. Now, the problem that you also have is Michael Parsons was very good against the pass. And he really upped the Cowboys' defense, especially on
mhm,
passing situations.
yes.
Him going to Green Bay has the same potential. But here's the thing, Gary. and we got to look at this very carefully. Michael Parsons has a back which is not steady right now, and I'll say it like that. It's not steady. Green Bay has a game coming up this week, and there's talk that he may not be able to play, or if he does play, he's going to play a limited number of plays. Here's where I'm going with this. Two things. One, he's limited, which also means he can't get on the field as much, which also means he can't get in that live action and get those plays in that he needs so he can learn Green Bay's defense. Now, we'll see how that plays out. The other guy goes to Dallas, same situation, but he's not injured right now. He's on the field practicing. Remember what I said. I would not have made the trade, but you can't call it a good trade or a bad trade until it plays out. And you got to let it play out. And right now, the way it's playing out, if Micah Parsons is not able to be on the field and close to as 100% as you possibly can be, Jerry Jones fleeced your Green Bay Packers.
Yep. John, I can't disagree with you, or I should say, I agree with you from the standpoint that Green Bay has to play this smart. For all the potential that he has at 26 years old, for all of what he's done, he hasn't had snaps this spring, or excuse me, this fall. And essentially, he hasn't had a whole lot of practice snaps since last season. I don't even think he worked out with them during OTAs. I think he worked out. He lifted weights, but he doesn't have snaps, which means he doesn't have that hit experience. Like of course in football, it's like once you feel that first hit, it's like, okay, I'm awake now. It's like an alarm clock, and everything after that is gravy. Um, they need to be smart in terms of how they wean him into their system. I do think you have to get him on the field to get him a few snaps. I don't know if you bring him in, say, on third down situations. I think maybe you bring him down, bring him in a second down, have him try to shut down a run or something like that, and just slowly transition him because again, he doesn't have football in him, much like the guy that they traded to get him, who played and practiced, all preseason. That's where I think they have to be smart. They also have to monitor his back and just see, just how serious it is. And really, there's no harm in putting him in limited downs for this first month of the season if you can, because I'd rather see them do that as opposed to throwing him in there, throwing him like a lobster into the pot and just having him flail in boiling water. That's the one thing I don't want to see. You have your metaphors as well, John, and then that's the only thing I can think of. So
That if that happened, that would burn a hole in your spurs, wouldn't it?
yes it did. And I needed to amend one thing. I said lobster. Being a Marylander, it's about putting a crab in a pot and watching him flail around. I ain't from New England. I'm a Bay man, and it's always about our blue crabs, right? Right. Yeah.
My man, Gary.
Yeah.
Gary, tell me a little bit about this U.S. Open, man. They had a tremendous matchup this week with Naomi Osaka against Coco Gauff, man. Tell me what's going on with that U.S. Open and how that match worked out between these two young ladies.
Well, I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised by Coco Gauff in some of her struggles, and I was also surprised at how well Naomi Osaka really, I don't want to say rebounded, or how she
Mhm.
has rebounded in her coming back. And of course, during this this tennis season, you see all kinds of stories about star players, and there was a point that after after she gave birth that she said she thought she would probably be retired from tennis, but here she is. She came back, and now she's in the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam event. I want to say it's like she's not too far removed from being in the finals of a tournament up in Canada, which was a great hard court rather, warm up for the U.S. Open. Um, Small steps for her, and good for her. Coco Gauff has struggled some since winning Wimbledon, just in terms of, or what is it? Or what, I'm sorry, I meant to say French Open. I'm getting something wrong here. It's still
Since
early,
she
young.
since she won one of the Grand Slam
Yeah,
tournaments.
since you won a Grand Slam, that a lot of mistakes,
Mhm.
serve percentage. Trying to think, just a lot of unforced errors. And it's not about the moment. I think it is about concentration because, uh, both of them made their breakthroughs in New York. And if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere. And to an extent, they have. But I think Naomi Osaka had more to prove in that match than Coco Gauff, because you start to look at some players. Yeah, and even at her young age, she's in her mid-20s. You start to look at some players and wonder, did they reach their peak? Maybe the break helped her. I think it did help her refocus in a sense and adjust her game. And of course, physically and I would say mentally, you mature and you start to understand a little bit more about the players you go against, as well as yourself. And I think that's the takeaway for Osaka that I really really like. I'm not really worried about Coco Gauff in the long run, because again, I mean, she's like in her early 20s. There's a lot more tennis ahead of her. I think she just has to look at what she's not doing right, as opposed to, you know, like trying to change wholesale things. She just needs to improve in her deficiencies, get rid of those, or minimize those, because Naomi Osaka, with a handful of titles under her belt, I think she plays with house money in essence. And again, I think she has had something to prove to herself to get there. That's my takeaway, and I'm really impressed, and I'm really happy for her, because um, in passing that torch, and Serena passing that torch to her, and in essence, maybe passing it to Coco Gauff as well. That's good for American tennis players. It's good, I'll say, for minorities to see a face that looks like them out there on the court and succeed. But for her, I think this is the time when she's really got to make that push to be, like I said, just one of the greats. Try to rack up a few more Grand Slam titles, and show what kind of tennis players we saw back in 2018 when she won the U.S. Open.
All right, Gary. Here's a quick question, then we got to go to close. Naomi Osaka, she defeated Coco Gauff in straight sets. How far does Naomi Osaka go? She's in the quarterfinals now. How far do you see her going?
I think she has the potential. I think she can reach the quarterfinals. Her serve has looked good in some of her recent matches. I mean, she was effective against Coco Gauff. She's able to really run down a lot of balls, a lot of deep balls that I didn't think she could. Even when she was an up and comer. Again, I think she's learned how to tailor her game, and really try to play both corners, both deep corners, well. And I think she has the potential. Of course, now you move on the quarterfinals. That's when you start seeing ranked players. And I'll be honest, I didn't see the draw. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Karolina Machova. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And that's the player who beat her at last year's U.S. Open. So it's a rematch of sorts. I hope she's observed enough from that match and from other matches. She's the number 11 seed, so she's got something to prove against a top player. And again, I just think that the main thing she needs to do is just play her game, not get caught up in the moment.
Gary, go home. Go ahead and take us home, man.
So, John, what more can we say about the start of NFL season? Thursday night. Oh man, I mean, it's going to be great. This is my month. This is my time of year, and I can't wait to see exactly how some of these prognostications. Oh man, do I need coffee? Some of these prognostications in terms of where teams are going, but really, all eyes are going to be on Green Bay and Dallas in terms of where they are, especially Dallas, because Jerry Jones, that move took the Dallas Mavericks off the hook for trading Luka Doncic is probably like the biggest, like, what the heck happened here story. So you've got that. Of course, you've got US Open finals, men's and women's side, college football. We still have WNBA, which we haven't had a chance to get into, John. So much there on the plate. I mean, it's a full plate. We might have to come back for seconds. Maybe not you, because you are a Hall of Fame eater and consumer of all things, especially sports. So, you know, you got the capacity. I think we have the capacity, but come on back and see us, folks.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this week. Another great week in sports. As Gary said, this week, watch some football, watch the NFL, watch the NCAA college football, watch the WNBA, watch the US Open, see what happens on the men's side and the women's side, watch some WNBA. But above all else, just watch some sports. We'll see you again real soon. Take care.